which are often cited as factors influencing external and internal interests in the war. In your opinion, how significant are these economic factors in shaping the course, if we can say, of the conflict in Sudan?
So, I mean, if you go back to modern Sudan, 1821 served as a key date in the history of how Sudan has actually become a modern nation. Muhammad Ali Pasha, acting on behalf of his superiors in the Ottoman Empire, he needed to form an army in Egypt, in Cairo. That was very difficult. The Egyptians would not enlist in the army, and as a result, he moved in 1821 by himself, not sending anybody else, to track the Nile all the way towards the borders of South Sudan today, and his quest was for gold and gold to finance the military machine that he required to prosecute wars in Hijaz and other places, and also men who are actually ready to fight. And the Sudanese men, in that sense, have been really battle hardened for hundreds of years, and they were also noted by Rudyard Kipling when the British square was actually broken in eastern Sudan. So the issues of resources are always there with war. You cannot fight a war without resources. Invasions require resources. It depends on the conditions, on what's really happening at the time. If you come back to sort of modern times, we had Chevron Oil dig a few wells in the border areas of Sudan and South Sudan today. When you're drilling for oil, you're looking at $20 to $50 million worth of cost. Hole, find oil grade. You don't find the oil, you have to, dump that hole and move on somewhere else with your seismic information and look to dig somewhere else. So Chevron was successful in the mid-1980s, found the oil, and then, of course, Jafar Numeri, for some reason, could not manage the situation. He had a revolt against him. And then, in many ways, today's debacle in Sudan actually started when Jafar Numeri led a change. He had several changes to empower himself, to position himself in his ruling of Sudan for 16 years. But he could not get the Chevron oil that was found, get it out and get it to market so that economically then he is strengthened. So there was a revolution, 1985, and Jafar Nueri was deposed, and it was economic situation. It was actually sugar. People could not have sugar, and Jafar said, look, use dates instead, and don't eat 3 meals, eat 2 meals a day, 1 meal a day. It was the economy that dropped Jafar Nueri out. Later on, obviously, General Bashir and the NCP, National Congress, المؤتمر الوطني, if I can say it in...
the National Conference, yes.
Yeah, they then managed, as they came in 1991, they managed to communicate strongly to the Chinese that they have this oil. They also managed to pressure Chevron to exit those concessions. They were the most prolific producing. So you drilled, the oil is right there. You just need to pump it out. Chevron then had a tax exemption from the U.S. government because they were not really ready to relinquish those producing assets. It was important for them. And I think they had almost $1 billion worth of tax exemptions, about 900 million. And as a result, they gave back those concessions to the government of Sudan. And then the government of Sudan then, divided those concessions in so many ways. A company from Canada called Iraq is led by a Pakistani, took over 25%. And that was a move forward. The Sudanese ambassador in China would actually go, in many ways, to the extent of groveling, asking them to come and look at these opportunities. And in and around 1996, the Chinese were stunned. They entered Africa through Sudan and they found Chevron oil ready to pump out. They didn't need to invest in the drilling. They didn't need to invest in the seismic studies. They found the oil. They started pumping. They constructed one of the longest pipelines, over 1,500 kilometers all the way, 1,000 kilometers. So the famous, of the longest pipeline till today from central areas of Sudan. That's we're talking about Unity State and Ijlij, and pumping stations were put together, and of course the Sudanese oil, Nile blend is called from that area is paraffinic,